Stampers, how is everybody tonight? I hope everyone is doing well. Judy Klock here at Stamping with Crafty Klock, and I am coming to you tonight with a project or two to work on featuring the lovely Mountain Air bundle. This photopolymer set is in our annual catalog on page 17, and this is a reversible set, which means the stamps that you see here that are grayed out, you can use them on the detailed side and also on the reverse, which is a flatter, more solid side. So that's what we're going to be working with tonight. Let me show you the two projects we're going to do. Both of these projects are a little bit more advanced, so I don't know if they'd be great for somebody who's brand spanking new to stamping. But let me just mute my computer as I follow along. There we go. Okay, there we go. So this is our first project that we're going to do, and it's fairly simple, but we reverse the stamps for the clouds and for the trees, and then we've also done a little bit of punching, and we've added a little bit of embellishment, and of course we've put in a greeting on the inside. And my goal was to try to make cards that were more masculine in nature because, hey, Debbie, how are you? Because I know that sometimes it's hard to find masculine cards. So I was trying to focus on something for the guys in our lives right now. And then our second card is definitely going to be for the avid crafter because we're going to do some heat embossing. We're going to do some sponging. We're going to try to create this sort of nighttime silhouette scene. So I think this might appeal a little bit more to our masculine audience. So let's go ahead and start with our first card with the Pool Party. And I'm going to use a base of Pool Party. It's 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. And because I'm using my photopolymer stamps, I am going to use my Stampin' Pierce mat. But the first thing I want to do is I want to stamp the greeting for the inside. So for the inside, I used Happiest of Birthdays set. And I'm going to use the set. It says, it's your day, enjoy it. So we're going to stamp that inside. And I always like to say, stamp the inside before you attach it, just in case you make a mistake, you can flip it over. So there we go. That's our inside. Really simple, not too much there. We're just going to go ahead and take our Stampin' Seal and we're just going to put that on the inside of our card base. And this is just Whisper White. It's 4 by 5 1/4, so just a little bit shorter than our card base, just a little tiny bit of that color peek through, and there you have it. All right, so let's get started on our card front. Again, we're going to use a piece of Whisper White that is 4 by 5 1/4, and the first thing I'm going to do, if you can see, I've sort of stamped my mountains, and I'm doing what's called second generation stamping here. So I'm going to take our soft suede, and I'm going to take our mountain stamps. Let me just get those on my block. And I'm going to ink them up, and I'm going to stamp them once, and then I'm going to stamp them again without re-inking. So the second set of mountains is going to be a little bit lighter than our first. And if you're ambitious enough, you could even do a third set without re-inking, and those would be very light. So here we go. Just going to go ahead and do one. I'm just going to move it up here, and I'm going to do 2. And there we have it. If you wanted to, you could go ahead and do a third one, but I think I'm going to leave it with just the 2 mountain ranges. Okay, so then I'm going to come in, and I'm going to use that pine tree stamp with the pine trees, but I'm going to use it on the reverse or the smooth side. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put it onto my block, and you could see one side definitely has like details and etchings and stuff. So we're going to flip it over, and we're going to use the side that doesn't have any of that. It's just all smooth. If you go ahead and run your fingers over it, you'll see that it's all smooth. And I'm going to stamp that in Pear Pizzazz because you always want to stamp your lighter color first and then go back over it with your darker color. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to stamp this first, because then we're going to come back over it with Old Olive. I'm going to stamp it once there, okay? And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to clean it off, and I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to use that detailed side. And I'm going to stamp one bit of detail right over that old, that pear pizzazz that I just stamped. And then I'm going to stamp some on a piece of old olive cardstock, and we're going to die cut it with the matching die, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just put this like right there. Okay, and make sure I get a good impression. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to take a piece, I'm going to lay this aside for just a minute. I'm going to take a piece of, this is old olive cardstock, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp, again on the detailed side, another set of these pine trees. Okay, not too far from the top, but you don't have to go all the way down, because what we're going to do is we're going to come in here with this die, and we're going to place it over the image we just stamped. We're going to run it through our embossing machine, and we are going to end up with a piece that looks like this. So there you have it. So now I'm just going to go and I'm going to lay this right over it. And you'll see it's a little bit longer. That's fine. I'm just going to come back and trim that with my paper snips. But I'm just going to go ahead and put some Stampin' Seal on there. And right now I'm using the Stampin' Seal Plus because I can't find my Stampin' Seal. It's in here somewhere. But I was working on so many projects, I need to clean my craft room. So I'm just going to go lay that here. I'm going to match the edges. Okay, just like that. And then I'm just going to flip it over and I'm going to take my paper snips. If you're ambitious, you could put it in your paper trimmer. This is small enough. I'm just going to take my paper snips and just kind of trim it up so it's even with that piece of Whisper White. All right, there we go. Now I want to add some detail, so I'm going to add some clouds. And first I'm going to, ow, I just stabbed myself with the scissors. I'm going to take our cloud stamp and I'm going to stamp it on the smooth side first. But I'm going to do second generation stamping. So I'm going to ink it up, I'm going to stamp it off, and then I'm going to stamp it on my paper. I wanted the lighter cloud. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to ink it up, I'm going to stamp it off, and then I'm going to stamp it on my paper. Because I wanted a very soft cloud. I didn't want that really bright blue. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to use my detailed side. And this I am just going to use full strength because it's just the outline. And I'm definitely stamping it off the cloud on purpose. Go there. Okay. So we've added some clouds. Now we're going to add some birds. I'm just going to come in here with Memento Tuxedo Black, and I'm just going to stamp a couple of birds in flight. And I always have to make sure, because a couple of times it's such a small stamp that I actually stamped them upside down. So my birds were kind of flying upside down. Okay, so that looks good. I'm just going to go ahead and close up my ink pads. So how's everybody doing tonight? If you are catching this on the replay, go ahead and let me know where you're watching from. Give me a heart or a thumbs up. Don't forget to leave a comment or to give me some kind of emoji that you're here and that you like it, because I'll enter you in the drawing to win these cards after we're done. I usually do that on the weekend. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down on my card front. And if you are watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and subscribe to my channel so that you always know when I've uploaded new content. I try to upload new content at least once a week. And I'd like to build my audience so that I can customize my channel. I need to get to 100 subscribers, so yay for everybody who subscribes to help me out. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a little happy birthday banner. And for that, I've taken the happy birthday from the Zany Zebras stamp set. And I'm just going to stamp it on. This is a piece of crumb cake. It's 3/4 of an inch by 2 1/2, 2 3/4. and I punched it with the Banners Pick-a-Punch. Again, that is new this year. And now I'm going to take some linen thread, and I'm just going to wrap it around. Ooh, that's smudged. I'm going to flip that over. You know what? We're going to do that again. I just didn't like the way that smudged, and that's why paper has two sides. Okay, there we go. That's looking a little better. Okay, good enough. I'll use that happy birthday later. We're just going to put that out of the way for right now. And I'm just going to wrap this around probably about 3 times. I'm going to let a pretty good amount hang down, maybe like 4 inches, 3 or 4 inches, so I can tie it. And then I'll just trim off what I don't need. I'm going to wrap it around 3 times. And then I'm just going to trim it up. And we're just going to tie this in a knot. This is optional. You don't have to add this if you don't want to. I just thought it added just a teeny bit of personality to the card. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. Somewhere in here I have my reverse tweezers, but I don't know where they are. There they are. Sometimes they get lost in my pencil cup. Okay, so that's great when you don't have a third hand, and it will hold that in place while you go ahead and tie a knot. All right, and we're just going to use our Stampin' Dimensionals. I'm going to use the minis on here. I'm going to just put a couple of minis on the back of this. And then we're going to pop that up right along. I'm going to kind of put one towards the end too to keep that thread from coming off. You know me, I love my dimensionals. I'll use a bazillion. Okay. So we've got that off. I think, stick it to my fingers. We're just going to go ahead and pop this right down here. And I'm just going to trim up the ends of this thread a little bit. And I just knocked off. Okay, sorry about that. I didn't. Oh my goodness. It's going to be one of those nights when things just aren't going to stay where they're supposed to. Okay, there we have it. How quick and easy was that? And I think that's suitable for the guys on your birthday wish list. So there you go. Let's go ahead and start our second card. This one's going to be a little bit more involved because we're going to do some heat embossing. So again, I'm starting off with a piece of rich raspberry. It is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4.25. Pardon me while I just kind of fix this a minute. There we go. Hey Lisa, how are you today? Hi Kelly. And inside I'm going to put a piece of Whisper White. That's 4 by 5.25. And we're going to stamp that happy birthday again. It's your day, enjoy it. Because we're going to have happy birthday on the outside, so we're going to put that little sentiment on the inside. And I'm going to stamp this one in rich raspberry. And I've just gotten it all over my fingers, so bear with me. I don't want to muck up our projects, and this is why I keep baby wipes down here. All right. So we're going to stamp it. Make sure you stamp it the way your card is oriented, because I've done it the wrong way. Sometimes I have a portrait card and I stamp it landscape or vice versa, which is somewhat frustrating. Okay, we're done with this stamp. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put this into our card base. Is everybody having a good evening? The weather was gorgeous today, wasn't it? Loved it. Loved this fall weather. I kind of think this might be false fall and it might get hot again, but I'm hoping not. Okay, so we have this. Don't forget to leave a comment. Give me a thumbs up or a heart, and I'll enter you into the drawing for these cards. So now we're going to do our card front. This is a piece of rich raspberry. It is 4 by 5.25. And I'm going to take that, the detailed tree stamp again. Let me just clean it off. And I'm going to stamp it in Tuxedo Memento Black. And then after I stamp it, I'm going to do a little sponging with the rich raspberry and Night of Navy to kind of give the card those deeper evening tones, like you can see. Okay, I want to make sure I get this really inked up really well. Okay, that looks pretty good. And I'm just going to kind of put this right there. And you want to make sure you get a good press on there. Okay, that's looking pretty good. All right, I'm going to lay this aside for a minute because we are going to stamp a few more images with this. But before we do anything, I want to bring in my Night of Navy and my Rich Razzleberry. And I took one of our sponges, I just kind of cut it up into different little quarters, and I'm just going to, I think my dog ate a piece of that. Ay, 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 they come down to help. And I'm just going to add some color. I'm just going to kind of rub it over the card front. I just want to add just some dabs of color to give it that look like it's twilight, dusk, you know, where it's getting darker and the moon is starting to come up. Okay, we can always come back with that. Let's go with our Night of Navy. Okay. Okay. All right. I don't want to do too much. I kind of like that. So we're going to leave that as is for now. I think that gave me just kind of the tones that I wanted. All right, I'm just going to kind of go over my hands again. Okay, now I'm going to do some heat embossing. So I'm going to rub my little embossing buddy over my card, hopefully to remove any static that might still be there. And I'm going to take the moon stamp, and I'm using the detailed side, not the flat side. And I made a mask of my trees, and I'm going to put my mask down, and then I'm going to stamp my moon. So it's going to look like my moon is coming up behind my trees. Okay. All right. So there we have that. Now I'm going to take my embossing powder. I'm going to open this up so I get that nice crease so I can put it back in my little embossing thing. Okay. I'm going to take this is the white embossing powder, and I'm just going to kind of put it over my card. Okay. Okay. Hopefully the embossing buddy did its job, which it didn't really. It's not really working. I think I might need a new one. So I have some paint brushes, and this is what I do when my embossing buddy doesn't work as well as it should. I want to get all that extra embossing powder off because I don't want that on there. So I have a couple of different brushes. So I can use this bigger one, and then I have a finer one that kind of comes in here and goes kind of around the moon. Okay. Okay, I might put a little bit more powder on there. Okay, this is the hardest part, is trying to get that embossing powder where you want it and not where you don't want it. Okay. All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. It'll be worth it in the end, I promise. I know this is kind of convoluted and long, but I promise you it will be worth it in the end. Well, at least I think it's worth it in the end, but hopefully you'll agree with me. Okay. All right, I think. All right, that might be as good as we're going to get it. So bear with me. I'm going to take my embossing, my heat tool, and I'm just going to heat that up. And let me just move this out of the way so it doesn't blow all over everywhere. Okay. And we're just going to watch that kind of come to life. Hey, Patricia, how are you? Okay. All right. That looks good. So now we've got our moon coming up kind of behind our trees. I'm going to add some of these larger pine trees. And again, I'm using the detailed side. For all the rest of these, I'm going to be using the detailed side. I am not going to be using the flat side. So I'm going to add one over here. And then I had another one that had a double on it. I don't know where it went to. There it is. Okay. I'm going to add this over here on this side of the moon. Okay. Now I took some basic black and I cut 2 trees using these tree dies that are part of the set. Hey Mel, how you doing? What did you miss? What did you miss? You can go back and watch the replay because it's been a lot. So I also put on the back of it, we have this adhesive sheets, and this works really well when you're using with the detailed dies. You put it on the back of the cardstock before you cut it, and then you just can peel it off and it's all ready to go. You don't have to worry about trying to get glue on the back or trying to, muck around with the glue pen or anything like that. The adhesive will already be there. So now we're just going to go and we're going to add these 2 trees. One right there. And we're just going to kind of layer the other one right over it or right next to it, but a little bit lower. So, and the sheets, these adhesive sheets, they come 6 by 12, and then you can break them down. I think they're like 3 or 2 by 3 inches. I don't know, but they come so you don't have to use like a whole sheet. You can use like just one little piece. They're like pre-cut. Okay, so now I am going to have to take out some of these little parts of the adhesive paper that didn't come out. Okay, because we don't want that white on our card. And that's when the U-pick tool comes in very handy. Okay. Except now I have like a million of these little black dots all over my floor in my craft room. Okay, I'm just going to kind of put this. Oh, I want to get those whites out of there. Come on, get out. Okay, and once this sticks, it sticks. So there's like no going back. So I got to get these pieces of white out of there now. Otherwise, I'm done for. Come on. All right. There we go. Okay. Again, I'm just going to trim off that little piece of the stem. Just going to cut that right off. Okay. We're going to go ahead and now we're ready to add this to the front of our card. Get rid of that for a minute. And I keep losing everything. I just had my Stampin' seal. Oh, there it is. It's right there. Duh. Some days I amaze myself. Some days I look for my glasses when I'm wearing them. I don't know what to say. That's just the way it goes sometimes. All right. Here we go. Now we've got that down. And because when I did the heat tool, this kind of bowed just a little bit. So it really is good to use that Stampin' seal because it is a much stronger seal than the average. The Stampin' Seal Plus is a much stronger bond than just the Stampin' Seal. So it'll hold that a lot better. Then I had a little piece of crumb cake. This was probably 2 inches by 2.5 inches by 3/4 of an inch. And we're going to come back in with our little happy birthday stamp from our Zany Zebra set. I'm going to stamp this in Rich Razzleberry. Okay. And then I'm just going to trim this up again. I don't want it to be that long, so I'm going to trim it with my scissors pretty close to that wide. Just kind of snip that off. It's a little crooked. I probably shouldn't muck with this, but that looks better. Okay. And nobody could probably see that except me, but I would be able to see it and I would know it and it would drive me crazy. Okay. I think we're almost done. It's all done except for the cleaning up. And I'm just going to add this right there. And that's it. So this one was definitely a little bit more involved because we did some heat embossing, we did some sponging. And we did a couple of, really intricate die cuts. So this is definitely for someone who's a little bit more advanced in their crafting, techniques, I guess. And then we had our fairly simple, we just did a couple of 2nd generation stamping. We stamped, like for the clouds, we stamped it off before we put it on the paper to make it a little bit lighter. For the mountains, we stamped them once and then we stamped them again without re-inking them again to get them lighter. So these are just some tips and tricks that you can use if you want to kind of add some more detail to your cards without necessarily getting a whole bunch of different colors. So that's it for me. My October class is still available. That closes out, I think, on the 7th or the 9th, I think is the last day to register. And then we have Stampin' Bingo coming up, and you can early bird by the 15th of October and get some extra door prize tickets. And registration for bingo closes on the 28th of October. And that will be the last bingo for 2020, because we just, the holidays hit and it's just too much going on for everyone. Also, the Designer Series paper sale started today. So select papers are 15% off. So be sure you check out the details on my website. That's it for me, everyone. Thank you so much for stopping by Stampin' with Crafty Klock. I will see you here next Thursday at 7:30. Have a good weekend. Bye.